I'll be on top of it too, but just like if things. All right, we're gonna. Did you check if it fell on the floor? Go and take wherever Barnes is. Just sit behind Barnes and okay, yeah. You're totally good. Yeah. And we'll get you a new one. I'm sorry about that. That's really annoying. All right. Addie, here you go. The Senate will now come to order. The Pledge of Allegiance will now be led by Chief of Staff Kohler, followed by a moment of silence and reflection.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated.
The clerk will call the roll. Please correct the pronunciation of your name if it is incorrect.
Lauren Anderson. William Barnes. Timothy Barr. Amanda Blanton. Bella Brash. Natalia Beyer. William Costello. Emma Cumby. Grant Dworzowski. Tate Few. Amelia Gay. Caleb Geddens. Kaylee Goodrich. Aiden Gruner. Sorry. Zoe Hopkins. Daniel Wang. Muhammad Iftikhar.
Present.
Anita John. Lakika Cassetti. Camden Kay. Tori Kerner. Mila Penta. Donnie Lapsley. Jeffrey Lyons. Jackson Matthews. Isabel Miller. Mackenzie Mozo. Bryson Peterson. Stone Pillsbury. Ainsley Reed. Sarai Ramali. Rodrigo Rojas. Taylor Sokert. Amaya Sal. William Wenzel. Lawson Windsor. Marion Winters.
With the quorum being present, is there a motion to approve the Journal of October 23rd, 2024 as found online? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. We are now in line for general orders of the Senate, beginning with reports from Senate leadership. Speaker Pro Tempore Beyer, you are now recognized to give a report on the Rules Committee.
Hello, everybody. Happy Spooky Senate. Rules met Sunday at 5:30 in the LSC as usual, and we reviewed 7 pieces of legislation, all of which were found unanimously favorable with 1 abstention each. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The Speaker Pro Tempore yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Academics Committee. Chairwoman Anderson, you are recognized.
Okay, guys, academics met at 7 p.m. on Monday. This week was more of a brainstorming session, but we reviewed 3 pieces of legislation. SBL 116, 29, 30, and 31 were all found unanimously favorable, and we started preparing 3 new pieces of legislation regarding study spots, online class standards, and student disability resource center spaces, which should be hitting the floor in the next couple of weeks. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Finance Committee. Chairman Wenzel, you are recognized.
Finance Committee met at the normal time last Friday. We reviewed a lot of allocations, which we'll get to later. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Chairman Kay.
It is sitting right next to my bag. Apologize.
Are there any other questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Health and Safety Committee. Chairman Gruner and Horace, you are recognized.
He still isn't waiting, so I didn't want to disturb us. Give me 1 second. This is really important for me. We're working on it. How's everyone doing today? Awesome. Perfect. Health and Safety met at 4:30 last week. We started going over various pieces of legislations. We did our last two tablings, but I'll let Blanton elaborate on that in a little bit. For the next few weeks, we're going to start potentially looking at more legislation in collaboration with the Center of Health and Wellbeing. A couple of our pieces of legislation pertain to some of their various services, and we're going to be starting to branch out with that within the next few weeks. And with that, we yield to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman?
Yeah.
Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Inclusion and Equity Committee. Chairwoman Cassetti, you are recognized.
Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. So Inclusion and Equity met yesterday at 5 p.m. and we basically discussed our ongoing initiatives, and we worked on a legislation that we hope will hit the floor soon. But that's kind of it, and I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Judiciary Committee. Chairman Kay, you are recognized.
Judiciary met this last week on Friday to go over SBL 30 and SBL 31 to amend Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 of the codes respectively. Both were found unanimously favorable. I'll yield to any questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Chairman Pillsbury, you are recognized.
Hey everybody, Powers met this past Friday and Sunday to interview 3 vacant seat Senate candidates, all of whom were found favorable. And this week we have 2 more interviews scheduled, and I yield the rest of my time for questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Student Life Committee. Is there any representative willing to give a report? Chairwoman Anderson, you are recognized.
Okay, I'm going to read this off, but Student Life met on Monday at 5 in the LSC and continued discussing individual action plans along with our committee-wide initiative. With the initiative, we will be doing a toy drive for the Homeless No More Family Shelter. We are looking for toy donations for children ages 4 through 13 years old, which could be anything from educational toys to balls or dolls. I will be sending out graphics for the drive by the end of the week, so more information to come out on that. Outside of this, the committee found both pieces of legislation, SBL 11630 and 31, unanimously favorable. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Sustainability Committee. Chairwoman LaPinta, you are recognized.
Hey everyone. So we met at 6 p.m. in the LSC as we usually do. There were 3 pieces of legislation to go over. We had SBL 28, 30, and 31. All were found unanimously favorable with 1 abstention on SBL 28. We have 1 piece on the uncontested calendar, which is 28, the one we voted on. 1 piece on the first reading calendar, and then hopefully 1 next week regarding battery recycling. And with that, I will yield to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Freshman Council. Are there any representatives from Freshman Council present? Seeing none. We will now hear a report from the Constitutional Council. Chief Justice Buchmeyer, you are recognized.
Some tough acts to follow up. Much like any week, nothing to report. Yield the questions.
The Chief Justice yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the Chief Justice?
Yes, sir. Came from my internship.
Are there any other questions for the Chief Justice? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you all.
We will now hear a report from Speaker of the Senate, Maura Hamilton. Speaker of the Senate, Maura Hamilton, you are recognized. Hey y'all, I'm so happy to see all y'all's spirit. I'm actually surprised about how hard some of y'all went, but I love it so much. Sorry, I'll have my costume at the end. It was just a little bit, it wasn't conducive with being speaker at the moment. But Nothing much from us. I hope that y'all are enjoying the homecoming festivities and taking part in them on campus. And then also making sure that you'll be attending the football game on Saturday. Hopefully y'all can get to Spurs and Struts after this. Only main thing I wanted to talk about is, if y'all saw on the calendar, reading across our desk in a little bit will be a communication from the Office of the Student Body Treasurer concerning the resignation of Jacob Vaught from Student Body Treasurer. Chief of Staff Lycan will get up in a little bit and talk about the President's Branch and their role in that, but just so Senate knows, what will happen is President's Branch is going to go through a process and they're going to put up a nominee, and then that nominee has to get confirmed by Senate. It's going to be sent to 3 committees: Finance, Judiciary, and Powers. The nominee needs to be found favorable by all 3 committees, not just 2, all 3. And then if it's found favorable by all 3 committees, it's going to go back to Senate, and 2/3 of Senate needs to approve that nominee. So y'all will have a very large say into who will be our next student body treasurer. If you have any questions about that process, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to clarify that for you. But other than that, I yield my time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We are now in line for a report from the student body treasurer. Treasurer Jacob Vaught, you are recognized.
Well, I'm going to be resigning on November 6th, but since I've still got 2 more sessions for Senate, I'm still going to cover the budget. This week, with the passage of the Finance Committee allocation bill, the fall semester budget will be at 82% utilization, with the total utilization for the entire year at 42%. Last Friday, the Finance Committee started enforcing the 15-year rich day policy. We denied about $45,000 in funding requests with an omnibus vote, and then additionally, after talking with some organizations, because a lot of them were reaching out to me, I did a data analysis and found that 47% of all approved requests this semester did not meet the 15-year rich day policy. And then completely unrelated to that, I am resigning from my role. This has been something that's gone on for over a month now that I've been planning. I've been working on my transition document since I didn't have one coming in, so I want to make sure that the next treasurer has a lot more guidance. I care a lot about student government, so this is not something that I've wanted to do, but with some stuff that's going on in my life, I've got to take a step back. I don't think that I can best serve the student body. I don't have the time to best commit to this role. So I think I'm going to step aside and let someone who has more time and more ability to actually put some effort into this, because I haven't had the time to actually put into it. So that's that. And then, let's see, I got some lists here I need to talk about. Next Senate, I'll provide my last treasurer update, and hopefully I'll be announcing my successor. I'll be working closely with the President's Branch to make sure that we agree to make sure they're still following in line, and hopefully to continue some of the initiatives I've been trying to work on in the past to help automate processes and make the funding process as simple for student orgs as possible, and to hopefully increase our funds year over year for a better system for students. And even after I step down, I'll still be available for everyone. I'm not leaving. If you guys have any questions, you can ask any exact store number. My number's in the master sheet. I don't know if that's public or not, but my number's available if you need to contact me. Just send me an email, also respond. I'm more than happy to answer questions. And with that, I yield the floor to questions.
The student body treasurer yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the student body vice president. Chief of Staff Gonzalez, you are recognized.
Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday. First and foremost, Courtney wanted to apologize for not being able to come today. Her and Patton are currently emceeing Spurs and Struts. So hopefully you guys will see some funny videos or content from that if you're not able to make it. Not too much from our branch for this week, kind of going off of freshman council. The Big Little reveal is going to be next Thursday, November 7th at 7:30. So please continue to reach out to those little freshman council littles to schedule coffee dates or any kind of one-on-ones if you think you might want to be your little if you are deciding to be a big. With that, the matching form is going to be due Sunday at 11:59. So just make sure that if you're wanting to take a little, that you're putting down your preferences by Sunday. That is a hard deadline. Kind of the timeline for that is that by Tuesday, all emails will be sent out of who your littles will be, and then Thursday would be the reveal. In terms of the reveal, I know that last year we made like signs and kind of like did a whole little thing. More information to come on that. Next up, thank you so much to everybody that came out and tabled or even reposted any kind of graphic for Carolina Civility. We interacted with around 500 students in our 3 events that week, so some great stuff there. Thank you to everybody. Just some general communication guidelines. Reminder, if anybody needs a graphic, you can go through your press secretaries of your branch. That's probably the easiest way to do it. And then they can put in a request in the graphics form. Also, for anybody that is not currently signed up for our newsletter, we do have a student government newsletter that goes out every Sunday. If you are not, you can contact me personally, and me and my press secretary can get together. My name and number is in the master doc in student government, but if not, then I'm sure me and Morgan can get together to get that number out there. But with that, I yield my time to questions.
The Chief of Staff yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the Chief of Staff? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
We are now in line for a report from the Student Body President. Chief of Staff Lycan, you are recognized.
Hello, everyone. Patton hates that he cannot be here in person tonight, but I will be delivering his update. So first of all, we would like to thank Jacob, both professionally and personally, for his service to student government. As far as next steps for the Treasurer's Branch, the search for a new treasurer will start immediately. Interviews will be happening as soon as later today until next Monday, and a decision will be made next Tuesday before 5 p.m. Patton is looking for an experienced individual who will not only be a solid team player and work diligently for the student body, but also to represent student organizations. After 5 p.m. next Wednesday, Patton will temporarily fulfill the treasurer's role, and he will oversee the staff to ensure that work does not stop for students. We will support him in this endeavor and make sure that the transition is as smooth as possible. As far as updates from cabinet and staff, EC has a candidate interest meeting on November 11th for individuals who are interested in running for student government next semester. He went on another stop on his Let's Talk Carolina tour on Monday. He talked to our FIMU chapter, received a lot of positive feedback, and I think he's eager to reach more organizations and hear their thoughts and concerns. Sunday, we had a tabling event before the women's soccer game. We reached over 150 students, and that was to promote awareness for breast cancer. We also had an athletics and community engagement survey tabling that happened this week. Similarly, we reached over 150 students, got some good feedback on how we can improve the point system for athletics. GR survey is going to be going live tomorrow, so we'll also be tabling for that. So more coffee and donuts will be available on Davis Field. We are in the works of planning a Veterans Day event and also a Rage Room event to hopefully happen in the next coming month. This morning, Patton had a productive meeting with all of the deans, was able to discuss student concerns like the syllabi database, absence for well-being, some mental health days, and then other initiatives like AI in the classroom. And he's also working with the Student Success Center on getting more free blue books for students during final exam week. He's also working with stakeholders on getting the SAMI Uber signs at several drop-off and pickup spots around campus to help promote safety there. He's been in communication with our parking director on the after-hours shuttle that will soon be announced. And then last Friday was another successful Board of Trustees meeting. The board approved the renovations to the 3rd floor of Russell House. I believe that is all, and I now yield to questions.
The Chief of Staff yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the Chief of Staff? Senator Lapsley.
Yeah, I think Patton can probably answer more specific questions on how we're reaching students, but we are definitely looking for somebody who has experience and will also be able to be kind of a good internal communicator with the rest of student government.
Are there any other questions for the Chief of Staff? Seeing none, thank you. We are now in line for special orders of the Senate. Are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read.
A communication from the Office of the Student Body Treasurer concerning the resignation of Jacob Vaught from the position of Student Body Treasurer.
Received. Continuing on with the special orders of the Senate, are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read.
A communication from the Speaker of the Student Senate concerning committee assignments. Iki Diapolito, Landon Pollock, Nicholas Gavin Arriaga, Powers and Responsibilities, Student Life and Sustainability Committees.
Received. Continuing on with the special orders of the Senate, are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read. Seeing no more special orders of the Senate, we are now in the motion period. Are there any motions on the floor at this time? Chairwoman Anderson. There's been a motion to add Chairman Barnes to the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Dworzowski. There's been a motion to remove Senator Dworzowski from the Finance Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Dworzowski. There's been a motion to remove Senator Dworzowski from the Judiciary Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Are there any other motions on the floor at this time? Chairman Pillsbury. There's been a motion to confirm the Senate nominees Kiki Diapolito, Landon Pollock, and Nicholas Galvin Arriaga. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The nominees are confirmed. Chairman Pillsbury. There's been a motion to suspend the rules to allow the nominees to take their oath of office. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The rules are now suspended.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. I, Landon Pollock, do solemnly pledge to faithfully execute. The office of student senator. To abide by the student government. Constitution and codes. To uphold the Carolinian Creed. And to represent my constituents. To the best of my ability. Congratulations.
Great. And now y'all get to sit with everybody else, like in the center. Is there a motion on the floor to reinstate the rules? Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The rules are now reinstated. Continuing on with the motion period, are there any motions on the floor at this time? Senator Galvin Arriaga. There's a max of 3 committees per senator, so you would have to leave some first. You got a zealous new senator. Love it. Senator Galvin Arriaga. There's been a motion to remove Senator Galvin Arriaga from the Powers and Responsibilities Committee and the Student Life Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Galvin Arriaga. There's been a motion to add the senator to the Finance and Judiciary Committees. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Are there any other motions on the floor at this time? Seeing no more motions, is there a motion to dispense of this motion period? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. We are now on the call of the introduction of new legislation. The clerk will now read.
SBL 11632, introduced by the Finance Committee, a recommendation to permit the Finance Committee to allocate funds.
Chairman Wenzel, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
Hello, everyone. Finance Committee this week reviewed $54,135.31, and we approved $24,512.52. The reason for the amount of denials was due to that 15-day period that we discussed, that Jacob mentioned earlier. There were a lot of organizations that didn't follow that 15 university day clause within our rules, presumably because of fall break. So that was the reason for a lot of the denials. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Vice Chairman Matthews. There's been a motion to pass SBL 11632 by acclamation. Seeing no objections, the legislation is now adopted. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11633, introduced by Chairman Kay and Vice Chairman Matthews, a bill to amend Chapter 3 of the Student Government Codes to relax restrictions on allocation requests.
Chairman Kay and Vice Chairman Matthews, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
I have a lot of notes, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I have all of them in order. There we go. So, here. All right, so what this bill effectively does is it gives some authority to the Finance Committee to deal with this issue of the 15-day rule. This was something that was changed in the last round of legislation, our large additions and alterations to Chapter 3. In doing so, previously, this measure had been moved from 7 university days to 15 university days. The reason for this change was within 7 university days, allocations could be denied if student government, the organizations, or the administrations moved too slowly. This was a legitimate concern and did occur last fiscal period. The intention behind this bill is to offer some alterations to this and give some authority to the Finance Committee to make sure that while we are still meeting obligations for administrative times, we also are not denying student organizations money that they might desperately need to conduct their operations. When we decided to serve as senators, as part of that, we are serving our constituents. We swore an oath to do so. Student organizations and the student inside of them are our constituents, and they deserve and are entitled to the money that they put into this pot. I've already conferred with the administration as well as some of the members of the Finance Committee, and not only has this bill been found to be a advisable decision, but almost necessary to the function of Senate and the Finance Committee operations if we are to continue with the finance operations. If you have anything you wish to say to that.
You did perfectly.
Thank you. Thank you. I will yield to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Senator Gettens.
I don't believe so, no. This was written before. It just hadn't been fully, it hadn't been fully fleshed out because this was something that we noticed as an issue previously. Just unfortunate coincidence of timing more than anything.
Are there any other questions on the floor at this time? Seeing no more questions, this legislation is now referred to the Finance Committee. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11634, introduced by Chairman Kay, a bill to amend Chapter 3 of the Student Government Codes to establish a student government undergraduate organizational budget.
Chairman Kay, you are once again recognized to speak on this legislation.
So what this bill effectively does is it creates similar to how we have the internal budget laid out, it creates an external budget every year. What we have found within the allocations, and as I mentioned previously, these have been worked on before, we found that there is about a month-and-a-half period inside of the spring semester, the fiscal period, where we are not allowed to make allocations. There is about a 3-week period in the fall. So in doing so, we thought it necessary, as previously this had been an equal division, to make it potentially not equal and give that authority up to the Senate to decide. And later you'll see a bill that establishes this budget very much similar to how we conduct SBL 1, which is the internal budget. What this aims to do is ensure that we have necessary funding for both semesters. It still mandates a division, and it still mandates certain percentages. However, it also allows some flexibility when it comes to funding allocation requests. The current issue that we're going to be facing is we almost certainly will not run out of money in the spring if the continued spending trends stay as they are. And while it doesn't always sound great to run out of money, we are handed this money by the university to offer to university students and organizations. It's our duty and obligation to ensure that this is used to the best of its ability and to its maximum efficacy. So we want to make sure that it's available for people in its maximum capacity as well. This establishes a budget which will allow us to hand that money out in this manner. I'll yield to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Senator Goodrich. There's been a motion to pass SBL 11634 by unanimous consent. Seeing no objections, this legislation is now adopted. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11635, introduced by Chairman Kaye, a bill to amend Chapter 3 of the Student Government Codes to increase the executive fund.
Chairman Kaye, you are once again recognized to speak on this legislation.
So what this bill does is currently we have an internal budget, as I've mentioned previously. Inside of the internal budget are three-ish technical funds that are utilized. A previous measure we had taken, both executives and Senate members, had moved parts of it around to better utilize the funds. Previously, it had sat inside a fund that did not get used all year long until the very, very end. We thought it important that this money be used during the semester and during the year in maximum efficacy. What this then did, though, was technically violate the codes and create a fund that exceeded its actual capacity. What this is aiming to do is basically retroactively fix that error and make sure that the executive fund, which previously was below 5%, now I think it's at about 8%-ish, is moved up to 10, which allows us to both avoid a constitutional crisis once again, as well as ensure that our money is best spent. I'll yield to questions.
To clarify, when the budget was created this year, per recommendation of the student body treasurer, we used to have something called the IMF. We still have it, but we decreased the amount in that budget dramatically because that served a purpose when student government used to line item request initiatives. So, like for example, SIP Save Carolina would have been requested like 7 months in advance. So it doesn't serve the same purpose anymore. That's why the executive fund increased. It wasn't just random money that we pulled into the account.
Yeah.
Are there any questions for the chairman? Senator Few.
So I'd say there's two answers to that question. One, we're dealing with a 188-page document, and people miss things. just saying, that is something that is inevitable. We're going to make mistakes, and we've generally come to the consensus that increasing this is more valuable than trying to keep it at 5%. The other piece of this is created in conjunction with about 13 or 14 other line items, so you are dealing with A, a good deal of math, and B, a good number of items that you have to consider their kind of viability inside of the codes. Once again, very easy to just miss things or not check the percentages. This has never been an issue before, and we never thought it would be an issue. I mean, obviously, this isn't something you really check for too closely, so it is something that we didn't notice until recently and said, okay, we need to go fix this, make sure this works. Thank
And
you.
once again, to emphasize, like the money just didn't come out of nowhere. It was just moved from one line item to the next.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for the chairman at this time? Vice Chairman Matthews. There's been a motion to pass SBL 11635 by unanimous consent. Seeing no objections, this legislation is now adopted. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11636, a bill to amend Chapter 3 of the Student Government Codes to relax restrictions related to international travel for tournaments.
Chairman Kaye, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
So this bill, what it effectively does is, as the title indicates, it removes the international travel expense restriction for tournaments. Now, this already exists inside of conferences, but as conferences were moved to a much lower percentage, this being $3,000, it's incredibly difficult to fund events that occur outside of the United States. I've already checked with several offices and administration as to whether this was something that was mandated by them. As far as university policy goes, what I found is that individuals have to take additional steps inside of the system to ensure that their ability to travel abroad is made or mandated, but it does not create additional paperwork on us. This is a restriction that when I went to go find out why it got added, it was just because they didn't like the paperwork. I think that's a really poor reason to have a rule, is just because you don't like the paperwork. So I think this could potentially be incredibly cool in sending teams out of the United States into large tournaments or large events, potentially get the University of South Carolina's name out there, add some prestige to the university. And I'll yield to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Vice Chairwoman Miller.
So like all requests, there is a safety and a risk analysis that is done by the university, including inside of this additional paperwork is certain restrictions, like anything that's banned off of the, there's a list of countries that are considered more dangerous. Those are typically banned for international travel from university funds. There's a couple other additional requirements and waivers that have to be signed if they're traveling to a country that might be like a secondary level of problem, for lack of a better term. That answers the question.
Senator Few. Heard but not recognized. Is there a motion to refer this legislation to the Finance Committee for review? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBO 11637, introduced by Chairman LaPenta, a recommendation to demonstrate student support for the university's request to fund a STARS consultant to collect data on sustainability efforts across campus.
Chairwoman LaPinta, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
Hey guys, giving Camden a little bit of a break before he has to get back up here and do one more. So basically what this is this piece is designed to be support. It's support for funding going toward a STARS consultant, which was requested by the Office of Sustainability. A STARS report is specifically designed for university utilization, and to create a baseline for sustainability measurement among college campuses. So it's like specifically for college campuses. So that's why we're requesting that a STARS consultant, so where the funding would be going, they basically come to campus and take a bunch of statistics regarding things like energy consumption, waste and recycling, disposal tonnage, just a bunch of other statistics that would be collected over the course of around a year, give or take a couple months depending on when the funding actually gets approved. But this would be going toward creating a cohesive climate action plan for the University of South Carolina. So that was my original goal, but upon talking to more people about it, it's kind of like we don't have the statistics, so we can't make the report if we don't have the stuff that's supposed to go in the report. So this is just to put student support for the funding on paper. So with that, I'll yield to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing no more questions, this legislation is now referred to the Sustainability and Student Life Committees. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBO 11638, introduced by Chairman Kaye, bill to allocate funds for student government for the fiscal year 2024-2025.
Welcome back, Chairman Kaye. You are recognized to speak on this legislation.
I learned my lesson. I brought a water bottle this time. All right, next bill. A long list. So what this one would effectively do is, as mentioned previously, creating a budget. This is just the actual physical copy of this budget. It follows much in the same line that SBL 1 is, which is our internal budget. I basically copied and pasted that format and then put it inside of the fall and spring budget. You will notice, particularly inside of there is a slight discrepancy in the equal values. I moved about $20,000 just to cover the last few weeks of fall, just to ensure we had enough funds there to fund anybody that we thought was necessary. And then any money that is not utilized in the fall will again roll over into spring. So if we don't use the rest of this money that has been allocated, it will continue to serve its purpose to ensure that organizations are funded. I'll yield to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Senator Few.
Yeah, good question. As I had mentioned previously, what we kind of looked at was inside of the spring, there is a much larger period where we are not allowed, like we are by the codes not allowed to fund people. So there's a 3-week period at the end of every semester just to give us an administrative time to ensure all requests are made out. And then there is also the elections period in student government. While allocations technically can be made during that time, they often fall significantly because the staff are being changed out and you have a period where, or a pseudo period where there are members of student government, but maybe they're not quite there doing the job yet. So you generally have a period of about a month and a half, where allocations are either very difficult to do or just not allowed to happen. So I've tried to keep this in mind when making when making this budget, to ensure that this money gets used to the best of its ability. I think the spring has much more limiting restrictions on what can and can't be funded, just from a time perspective. So I thought it was necessary to ensure that the fall also has this additional funds to meet those expectations and those obligations. And if we go look at the last 3 years of allocation request processes, the fall has statistically had much more requests on average than the spring. And technically in the last year we ran out by the fall time, so that didn't help either, but that is some of the reasoning for it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions on the floor at this time? Seeing Vice Chairman Matthews? Heard but not recognized. Is there a motion on the floor to refer to the Finance Committee for review? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read. Seeing none, we are now on the call of uncontested legislation. The clerk will now read.
SBL 11628, introduced by Senator Kerner, a recommendation to encourage the university to prioritize the sustainability of electronic recycling and student education on resources.
Senator Kerner, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
Hello, everybody. Again, this recommendation is just to show the university that there is a wanting from the students to get involved with electronic recycling. Higher education institutions, such as ourselves, are one of the #1 contributors to e-waste nationally. And again, we last year averaged 132 tons of e-waste, and so we want to get students involved and learn how to properly dispose of electronics and potentially create different avenues like donations and repurposing. But again, we met with the Director of Sustainability, who is very excited about this opportunity to have this kind of function through Sustainability Month, through events like Green on Green. And so the Sustainability Committee thought it was very important that we get a hold on this and educate students about electronic recycling, because it is a global issue. I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing no questions, seeing that this was on the uncontested calendar, we will now move to a voice vote on the legislation. All those in favor of passage say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The legislation is adopted. Congratulations, Senator. Thanks. Continuing on with the call of uncontested legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11629, introduced by Senator Kerner, a recommendation to urge the university to include more details and information about study locations on campus.
Senator Kerner, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
So this one is trying to get the university to add more details to their website about study locations on campus. Currently, it's very mixed matched on the website. There's multiple spots, but it's the same 5 locations that they advertise every time. And then also there's a lack of details. There's nowhere to reserve any study spots. And so Clemson University was kind of the comparison here, because their website has done very well. They have reserve now links for every study spot, whether or not your specific major can study in those buildings, which would be great to know before you get there. Opening and closing times and descriptions of what it looks like in that area. A couple questions from last time I wanted to clarify on is, yes, absolutely there would be advertising for locations on satellite spots of the campus. We did talk to Abby briefly, me and Senator Cumby, about doing advertising on social media, and got it approved, and so there will be locations added that would be satellite locations. And then another one too was this was intended to create reserve now links. So if there's the opportunity to reserve a study room, you would just go to this one-stop shop on the website and see all your study spots, have reserve now links all in one space. I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, given that the legislation was on the uncontested calendar, we will now move to a voice vote. All those in favor of passage say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it, and the legislation is adopted. Continuing on with the call of uncontested legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11630, introduced by Chairman Kay, a bill to amend Chapter 4 of the Student Government Codes.
Chairman Kay, you are once again recognized. 30. 31 is Chapter 5.
Senator Few is also a sponsor on it.
My apologies. Senator Few, you are also recognized to speak on the legislation.
Hey guys, me again. So, as previously mentioned, this is to amend Chapter 4 of the election codes. It goes over a significant amount. Everyone should have read and seen it, as it was assigned to all committees. Again, what it effectively does is a major reduction in word count. There were over 2,000-ish words removed from these sections to make sure that this language is more clear and concise and understandable. As I've mentioned previously, it is in the interest of the body to make sure Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 are as simple to read and understand as possible, because these are the ones we hand out to people the most. If anyone has any specific questions or concerns or comments, I'm happy to answer them now. Otherwise, you've already heard my spiel before. We'll let everyone enjoy their early Hallows Eve. And if you have anything you'd like to add. Sweet. We'll yield to questions.
The senators yield their time to questions. Are there any questions for the senators? Seeing no questions on the floor, given that this legislation was on the uncontested calendar, we will now move to a voice vote on this legislation. All those in favor of passage say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The legislation is adopted. Continuing on with the call of uncontested legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11631, introduced by Chairman Kay, a bill to amend Chapter 5 of the Student Government Codes.
Chairman Kay, you are once again recognized to speak on this legislation.
Once again, y'all have all heard this before. What this bill effectively does is it moves the pieces that were inside of Chapter 4 that had to deal particularly with the Constitutional Council's responsibilities in the elections to their place where they deal with their codes. It moves it over to Chapter 5, which is the section that contains the judiciary's the judicial branch's responsibilities. It also includes some references, so anywhere that previously had existed, it does say, go back and refer to this new area, just to make sure that if people got to that point and they were like, where do I go from here, they do have a reference mark. If anyone, once again, has any questions, comments, or concerns, happy to answer them. I'll yield once more.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing no more questions, given that this legislation was on the uncontested calendar, we will now move to a voice vote. All those in favor of passage say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The legislation is adopted. Continuing on with the call of uncontested legislation, the clerk will read. We're now on the call of contested legislation. The clerk will read. Hearing none. We're now in line for a period of open discussion. Does any senator wish to bring a matter of attention to the body? Seeing none, we are now in line for a period of announcements. Are there any announcements on the floor at this time? Senator Blanton.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'll make it super quick, but I just wanted to thank first off Aiden Gruner for his help with SIP Safe Carolina, as well as the Health and Safety Committee, Maura for all of her help, Emma with helping with all of the budgeting and everything like that, and then also all of the following volunteers which gave their time to tabling on Monday and Tuesday of this week. Casey Stone, Nora Rickaby, Sydney Musgrave, Abigail Matthews, Rithi Ramath Murthy, Kate Allman, Kaylee Goodrich, Jacob Borton, Audrey Loudon, Emma Cumby, Alexa Yakowskis, Myron Harris, Jordan Cooper, Tori Kerner, Kat Petrova, Emmy Kohler, and Patrick Kuhn. As you guys can tell, that's so many volunteers. This is absolutely incredible, so thank you guys so much. We reached well over 300 students with drink strips, drink covers, and educational materials, including some from SAPE. We distributed coffee, hot chocolate, soda, chips, and cookies, which were quite well received by the student body. And then we also received positive feedback from some housing staff looking for future collaboration, which is really exciting. And then finally, the company that we collaborated with is so happy with how our initiative came together. They plan on advertising our event with hopes that other universities will use it as a model in the future. So thank you again for all of your help with this initiative. It was truly a team effort, and thank you.
The senator yields her time to the well. Are there any other announcements on the floor at this time? Senator Goodrich.
as I have said for the past couple senates, we are having the Dogs and Donuts on Monday, which is super exciting. We're gonna have duck donuts, and if you don't know what that is, it's like, I guess like gourmet donuts.
Like fancy ones?
And there will be a lot of them, very many. So I also need help transporting the dogs to the tabling event, and it's gonna be 12:30 to 2:30. So that's really fun, and I hope to see all of you guys there. And yeah, it's a dress down if you donate dog toys in the LSC. That's all I have. I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Chairman Pillsbury.
It's Monday. Yeah. That's November 4th. And then dress down is on the 6th if you donate. So all toys will be, oh, Aiden? Oh, what? What? Oh, yeah, everybody sign up to volunteer. It's in the group me. Pretty please. I guess that's what Aiden was signaling to me.
Any other questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any other announcements on the floor at this time? We're not done yet, so don't start packing up. Quick announcement from me. First off, let me see if I can get the costume on by myself. Thank you to Aiden Gruner and his mother for helping prepare this for me. But I am, oh gosh, there's a lot happening in here. Okay, let's see if this, no, it's okay. I think I've got it. Maybe? I'm a speaker, but like a music speaker, like not what I'm normally like. But this was my costume. Just obviously, I don't have arms in it, so I couldn't wear it during Senate. But I'm really happy that y'all dressed up. Like feeling friendly and social in Senate was something that was really important to me when I became speaker. And I don't know, so it was just a really good sign of that. And also, I look like a freak right now, and I feel okay looking like that in front of y'all. So this is my speaker costume. Also, just a clarification. Let me put that down. When people were motioning to pass by unanimous consent, and I instead asked if there was a motion on the floor to refer to committee. Not at all in a malicious intent at all. We just want to make sure that when legislation is being read across the floor, like sometimes there's no harm in just taking a week, letting it be read by the proper committees. You might have a little bit more expertise in the topic, and they're able to have an extended discussion about it. Just make sure that the legislation that we're passing is thoroughly vetted by people who are really passionate about the piece. Other than that, I don't have any other announcements. Chief of Staff Kohler is going to get up in a minute. Does anybody have any questions for me at this time? All right, seeing no questions, Chief of Staff Kohler is recognized as a special guest of the Senate to speak.
Special guest, that's so fancy. So as some of you may know, and this is gonna be a surprise for him, so I reached out to all of our Senate, y'all are aware of this, but one of our senators just recently got engaged a couple of weekends ago. Chairperson Camden Kay of our Judiciary. So what we've done for you, Camden, is we know that your devotion for student government, it runs deep. So what we've done is written you a bill to congratulate you on your engagement. And also, we know how much you love the codes. We know how much time you spend with them. So we're offering you codes to a successful marriage. In this, you'll find congratulatory notes from your fellow senators and some of our staff and Mora. And then the second part offers advice about how to live a happy, successful life with your new wife, your fiance, Christine. So congratulations. If you want to come up here. I know this isn't standard protocol, but we have a place for you to sign because I know Christine will hold you to this.
Oh, I'm
so
sure.
let me
I'm
get
sure.
you a pen.
I fear multiple people submitted the same piece of advice, which is that your fiance is always right. Like multiple people. And
I mean, she is.
Yeah.
So, like, that's just the correct advice. Thank you. I need to actually make this handwriting pretty, because normally mine's like a line.
Because if this ends up on your
Alright.
wall in your future home, it needs to look good.
It will. I'm going to frame this. You do realize that.
As you should.
Thank
so
you.
congratulations, Camden.
Thank you all. I really appreciate that. Do I sit here and read out their advice and make some fun of some people?
You should read a few, definitely.
Oh, okay.
The advice gets funny.
Some of this is really nice. Sorry, that wasn't meant to be like. Yeah, now I got to figure out which one's funniest to read. Who's got a funny? Raise your hand if you thought yours was funny.
I submitted a funny one.
I got two. I'll read those two. Where are they? Normally, I'm so much more prepared for this. There's several acts. Thank you all. This is like really, really sweet. Listen to each other. Was that yours?
Oh, no, mine was the congratulatory note. I talked about the fact that you're old.
That I'm old? Yeah, that's right. I agree.
What's the very last versus the very last one on?
Yeah, I'm trying to like figure out how it is. Do you know? Can you come lead me in this? Because I'm trying to figure out where people are.
Okay, so Mora's is right here.
Okay, so I had this out. Congratulations, you're old and mature and a homeowner and engaged now, but that's the fun of life. You missed a space.
That might have been formatting issues.
I know.
Then
Wait, where's Aiden's? Oh, if I did have a piece of advice, it would be this. Struggles or situations are natural and they happen from time to time. That is part of what makes a relationship so special. My piece of advice for you is to always remember that you should be you and your partner versus a problem, not you versus your partner. It sounds silly, but you can overcome so much when you and your partner work together when you overcome a problem. I'm so happy for you.
Wow.
I love you.
I fear in the interest of time, we might move to adjourn, but we can still hang out and chat after.
Please.
Just outside of official Senate boundaries. Are there any other announcements on the floor at this time? Seeing no more announcements, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Without objection, the Senate will now stand adjourned until Wednesday, November 6th, 2024.
I can't quite tell where it's supposed to be. Because it's like 12. It's like cut off.
It's not. Yeah. It's they're not all aligned.
Yeah.